Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations from the C-Suite, the Girlfriend's Guide to Being a CEO. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, and you know how we like to get started. We want to make sure that we have others in this conversation because this is going to be a great conversation. And as much as I love hearing the sound of my own voice, I don't want to be talking to myself. So I invite you to invite at least three people. Let's make sure that we send out an invitation to at least three people and share it out to at least three groups because we're going to be talking about the very important commitment to removing toxic people away from your holidays. So I'm going to do what I've asked you to do and invite others to the call. And after these messages, we'll be right back. It's really not in the messages, but I will be right back after I invite some folks out. So I'll be back. All right. Well, welcome everyone to Conversations from the C-Suite. It is time to get this conversation started. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes. And as always, it is my pleasure to be here with you in the C-Suite where you make the decisions to create the life you desire and deserve. Because, every woman needs to have a seat at the table because regardless of whether you are creating a seat for yourself or whether the seat is already there and you're taking your position, when you are at the table, you are in a position to get others at the table because we know there is power when women gather. So Conversations from the C-Suite is where we empower each other to not only find our seat at the table, but find room for someone else. So, Conversations from the C-Suite is a power packed hour where we give real women a platform to discuss the issues that real women face in real life because we know that life doesn't end when we leave the office. And CEOs don't wait on great things to happen. They make great things happen. So we want you to make those CEO moves on your journey to the C-Suite. Why the C-Suite? Well, in any business, the C-Suite, that's where all the power is, baby. That's where all of the decisions are made. And whether you report to a CEO or you are the CEO of your company, you are always the CEO of you, which means you always have the power to create the life you desire and deserve. And it's only a decision or two away. And of course, as the chief executive officer, we want to focus on that middle word, executive, which means execute, which means we are getting things done. That's why here in the C-Suite, we make CEO moves. So we want you to feel something, learn something, but most of all, we want you to do something because it's all about your actions that will lead to you having the life you desire and deserve. So we want you to make those CEO moves, create your circle of influence, educate and empower yourself for elevation. And the most important move of your CEO move, operationalize what you learn to optimize your outcome. So, Conversations from the C-Suite is the girlfriend's guide to being a CEO, which means we're just having a great conversation over wine. I hope you have yours. I have mine, because we want to make sure that we are ready to make those CEO moves. So, are you ready? I don't know if you're ready, but I'm ready, because this is a very important topic and something that we all face in one way or another. We wish that we didn't have to face it, but unfortunately, sometimes we do. Some of us may be dealing with the person or people that we want to disinvite from the holiday dinners. It's the person who shows up with the stank attitude and tries to put that stank all over everybody else. They see life through poop colored glasses and they want to put that poop on you, but you're like, don't want that, don't need that in my life. Could be a relative, could be a family friend that's even hurt you in the past, because the hurt that our family members or loved ones or family friends or people in our lives have imposed upon us doesn't go away during the holidays. And it's hard to sit there and enjoy yourself when you're looking across the table at someone who has hurt you. And it may even be that you are just trying to hold it all together for the sake of the kids so that they can have a great Christmas after a divorce, a breakup, or just a relationship that's way complicated. So we want to give you some tips, some strategies, actions, things you can do to make sure that the toxicity in others does not intoxicate you. So we are closing out our focus on the C in CEO moves, creating your circle of influence. Over the past few episodes, we've been focusing on relationships, because whether it's at the office or at home, all of our success comes from our relationships, because you don't do business by yourself and you've got to interact with others. So we want to close out this series with focusing on getting the toxic people out of your life. Now, we're focusing on it for the holidays, but the toxic folks, they come around year round. So this is something that extends past the holidays, but can be especially difficult during the holidays. So I am pleased to bring back to the C-Suite my girl, Jocelyn Lane. And of course, if you were here with us on the last episode, you heard from her, and we talked about how to deal with loss during the holidays, whether that's death, divorce, or just dealing with grief and being able to have a joyful holiday regardless. So we're going to continue that theme, but focus on toxic folks that's in our lives as opposed to those who've already left. And we want to get the toxic folks out too. So let me just remind you about this powerful CEO. Jocelyn Lane is a licensed certified social worker on the Gulf Coast Veterans Healthcare System in Biloxi, Mississippi. She's been in the social service field for over 15 years, and she is truly a powerhouse. Not only does she help veterans, but she also works in the community with her Pink Lotus Project, which focuses on servicing the needs of women and girls. And because she needed a little bit something else to do, she also has her own private practice, Premier Professional Counseling Services. So she is truly dedicated to helping us all to have better relationships with ourselves so that we can have better relationships with others. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring to the stage my Sora. She's also a member of the illustrious Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And we want to just welcome you back to the C-Suite. Hey, girl.
I'm happy to be back.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And, like we did last time, some of the listeners out there may be listening to you or seeing you for the first time. So we're going to do the who, the what, and the why again, where we learn who is the real Jocelyn Lane, what it is that you do, and why you make CEO moves because you're making some major moves out there.
Okay, so my who, what, and why may be a little different from week
That's
to
good.
week. So, I'll
That's
share
fine.
who I am. Again, I'm Jocelyn. I am a licensed certified social worker, clinical in some states, same thing. But I'm a licensed certified social worker. I have been in the social service field for 18 years, working in some capacity of social services and social work. I've been licensed since been a licensed social worker since 2000. So I've been doing this for a long time in some capacity. Recently opened my private practice, bricks and mortar. I have been had a private practice since 2013 and been doing some concierge work, but decided to open bricks and mortar building. And I've had a wonderful year so far. I'm excited about that. I am a mother, a wife, a grandma to a 3-year-old, and a servant leader.
Yeah.
I love to serve, and I think that women being in leadership positions is imperative to move us forward. So
Right.
I like to see myself as a servant leader. So that's the who. Why? I do this because it's truly my passion. I love to empower women. I love to empower girls. I like to see women win. I love to see girls. I love to see them when the light bulb goes off and they really understand why you've been, on their back for the last couple of months and trying to get them to understand things. So I'm very passionate about women and girls issues. And that goes over to my nonprofit, Pink Lotus, where we do a lot of things around women and girls mentoring. And it also, comes over into my private practice as well. That's almost half of my clientele of women and girls. And so I like to be able to be a help to them and be able to, help them on their journey.
Yeah.
So that's the why. So the what.
Yes.
I am a CEO. I am a a little bit of everything. A board president. So I'm doing a whole lot of things, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying life right now. I'm living my best life. At least I'm attempting to.
Yeah, no, you living it, girl. You living it.
What it looks like. I am running my own race and enjoying every minute of every lap of that race, and just really in this season attempting to be thankful and grateful for where I am and for the blessings that I have right now. So,
well, cheers to you, girl. I'm not going to pass up an opportunity to have a little sip of So yeah, but it is, truly impressive because of course I know you personally. I get to see you or have gotten a chance to see you work hard, up close and personal. I've worked alongside you, and it is you hit on something that resonates so loudly and is the reason behind conversations from the C-suite, and that is getting women to embrace their leadership, because a lot of times we're natural leaders, but more than often we're reluctant leaders. We don't want to call ourselves leaders. We don't want to be recognized as that, which is why my focus is on helping women to be CEOs. And sometimes that's a literal CEO of a company, CEO of their own, business that they have, CEO in a business, but it's really about being in charge of them. And like you say, living your best life, running your race, and loving every minute of it.
Every minute. And, like you said, you and I are personal friends. So I remember not being as confident as I am now, and you encouraging me and saying, no, Jocelyn, you're going to take this opportunity and you're going to stand up and say exactly what you need to say. So I thank you for that, because I needed that. So that has helped me to propel into being able to do some of these things. So I appreciate that.
Well, great. And, I appreciate that. And that warms my heart because, that's why, I talk about how important it is to make sure that other women have a seat at the table. Right. And, when we get in those positions where we have our seat at the table or we are at the table, a lot of times we have a sister who's sitting there She may not be comfortable there, or she doesn't think she belongs there. She halfway there. She got her seat kind of pulled up behind. And,
Absolutely.
we help each other. Now, for you and I, that has a particular meaning. It has a special meaning as it relates to our beloved Alpha Kappa Alpha. But, I take that to heart, within the sorority, but to the greater sorority, if you will, of women leaders, and women accepting the role of being the CEO of their lives. Because when you become a CEO, you make decisions, and every decision that a CEO makes impacts somebody else. And why not be purposeful in that, and embrace that, and help another sister. And again, we ain't got nothing against the men. This just happens to be our focus.
Right. And having the attitude that when one of us wins, all of us win. There is enough room for all of us to shine. There's enough glitter. I'm convinced there's enough glitter in the world for all of us to have a little bit of it.
Yes.
So just, not being very intentional about helping your sister out. I was not comfortable, but you pulled my chair right up and said, no, you can do this. So,
you're being nice by how I did it, though. She being very nice by how I said it. I was probably a little bit more forceful. How to pull your chair up? I was like, you just sit down right here.
And we can do this. So, sometimes you feel like you might be there and that you can do something, but if you could get just a little boost from somebody, that you admire, just a little boost, just a little nudge to, to move you in the right direction is always really good. You never know who you're impacting when you just give just a little nudge, just a little bit more as far as confidence to that person, to that other woman. And, thank you.
Well, you are so welcome. You are so welcome. And, one last thing I'll say before we get way off topic. It's a good topic, but what we're supposed to talk about, but it's something that's just so key. And it kind of ties into this whole toxicity aspect, because a lot of times, we hear about, or what is focused upon, and quite frankly, what's glamorized are toxic relationships between and among women. We've been castigated as the constant bickering, and we can't get along, and there are women. In fact, there's a whole study on it, queen bees, and queen bee is not a good thing. I used to think that was a good thing, but it's not. But there's all of this rhetoric. There's all of this focus on the drama, the entertainment of the drama, and the perpetuation of this feeling that, in order to be successful, you must be toxic. And that's just quite the opposite.
Right.
And it is counterproductive.
Right.
When you don't bring others along, because I believe in building alliances, and I ain't trying to be out there by myself.
Absolutely. It, to me, it's quite the opposite. The less toxicity you have, the more you can kind of move to where you need to be, because, it's a weight.
It is.
And it is weighing you down, literally. And so when you can free yourself from that weight, and we have to think back to when we first felt that it was okay to be toxic, because we've all been toxic when it comes to other women before in our lives. Now, I would like to think that most of us have grown and we have moved, forward. And in some instances we have, but sometimes there can still be some toxicity. But you have to think back to maybe 3rd or 4th grade when you were on the playground and somebody told you shouldn't like her because she has long hair, or you should like her because she thinks she's all that. Well, I don't really know what all that is, but because somebody told me that I shouldn't do this, then I'm considering that I shouldn't do this. So we are taught those type of relationships way back when we're younger. And so that moves sometimes with us throughout our lives. So we have to be very intentional about breaking those cycles.
Right.
Toxicity.
So that's the perfect segue into, what is really very important, because, as we introduced in the last episode, the holiday season can be really stressful. It's supposed to be joyous. It's supposed to be all of this fun, but it can be quite stressful. In last episode, we talked about, the financial stresses, the stresses of having to get all of these gifts, money aside, just the whole aspects I talked about, I used to have a 50-person Christmas list. And
Right.
it's so funny. There was a post that popped up on my timeline, what is it, the memories. And it was me fussing about how I had all of my family's gifts, but I was completely stressed out about trying to get them mailed. Because it was like 50 people. Some of them I delivered or whatever. But, we talked about all those stresses. But, aside from all just the expectations of the Christmas season, the holiday season, the parties, moving into the new year, there is the very real aspect of dealing with toxic people during holidays, because sometimes it's, I always reflect on the saying that hurting people hurt others.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of times the people who are stressed out by Christmas, they've lost a loved one, they feel alone, they feel sad, they feel overwhelmed. That toxicity or those stresses have to go somewhere. And a lot of times they spew that onto others. So you deal with that. Then you deal with, the toxicity that results from, people who have hurt you in the past, whether that is something on the scale of, it's a broken relationship or just folks you don't like, or the very, very hurtful aspect of someone who has perhaps, you have to see your molester at Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
You have to see the person who assaulted you, or someone who has, attacked you physically. I mean, it can be on that spectrum of the issue in terms of what you're dealing with. But regardless, it all gets back to us recognizing that impact that it's having on us and making decisions around what are we going to do.
Right.
And so
dealing with toxic people during the holidays, I think back to the Hallmark movies. We all want our families to be like this wonderful Hallmark movie, and it's just everybody's getting along around the table, and but that's just not everybody's reality. And knowing what your family's reality is before you get there, being prepared is very important. If you know that your family has some issues, that there's some things that, an uncle hadn't said to an aunt, or if a cousin or whoever, if you know that going in there, you need to prepare yourself for what may happen, or for what maybe, and it may not have anything to do with you personally. You could just be a bystander.
Yeah,
but,
that stuff.
It does directly affect your mood. Because that energy that's being spewed throughout the holiday time, you're soaking up that energy.
Right.
And so if that energy is negative, then it can directly affect your mood, and you being, you not being in a good place for the holidays. So first thing is being prepared.
Right. Because, at the beginning of this, or the very first episode, and as a matter of fact, the very first 6 episodes of Conversations from the C-Suite, we dealt with mental wellness and mental health. And the theme throughout all of that was protecting yourself, preparing for it, and committing to putting yourself first, and not feeling like, your mental health is something that, because sometimes we think that's a luxury. We think that's something that's somebody else. That's other people. That's this or that's that. But we have to be, like you say, prepared and know what your tolerance levels are, and know the energy that affects you.
And knowing that, like we talked about last week, knowing that the holidays are not happy for everyone. So when you are mixing different people in a room, maybe for a weekend or for, 5 or 6 days, everybody is not going to be on the same page with the holiday.
Right.
There are going to be some people with some different feelings about others, about the holiday, about losing someone. So you got people in different places emotionally that are all coming together like a gumbo.
Yeah.
All coming together.
It don't taste good.
You have to make something that tastes good for Christmas.
Yeah, no.
So, that can be difficult because you have a lot of everything happening. So just being mindful of others You know, when you're walking into the room,
Mm-hmm.
be mindful that these other people may also have some things that are going on that they're not happy about too during this time, because the holidays are happy for everyone.
Right. So let's talk about that. Just kind of you're dealing, or you have a relative, a family friend, whatever, who is just got the stank attitude. What responsibility, if any, do we have for helping that person find their happy place during the holidays?
You don't have any responsibility.
Thank you. I was hoping you was gonna say that, but I asked it just so that you can specifically say that you have no responsibility for making anybody else happy during the holidays or any other time of the year. Hello.
What you are responsible for is setting some healthy boundaries while you're there.
Right.
And you're responsible for being prepared for your feelings and your emotions, because everyone is responsible for themselves, and they're all responsible for their own mental wellness. Yeah. So, that can sometimes throw us when we're trying to take care of everybody else and make sure that everybody else is okay. That, please don't say this because we don't want to, upset somebody, or we try to make sure that everybody else is okay. Yeah. So take care of yourself. Be prepared, and as my grandmother say, mind your own business. Yeah, because you cannot be responsible for someone else's happiness in the holidays.
Right. So let's talk about just kind of the very real thing. Right, we know it's truly not our responsibility. Right. But how do you actively work through that? What are some suggestions rather you have on actively working through that? You're at the family dinner. Somebody there with the nasty attitude. You're trying to be respectful. They trying to test your gangster. Right. How do you, literally kind of deal with that on the spot? Because it's easy for us to say right now, but when you're faced with that person, they're sitting right there in front of you. You're trying to enjoy yourself. You're trying to sip on your wine or whatever it is. And and they're just kind of constantly coming at you.
Yeah. So setting boundaries, that's a huge one. And going in with a positive attitude. But the boundaries are the most important thing that you can do. When you go in and you already know that there's some tension, that there's some negativity, you go in with your positive attitude, but you also set boundaries. Don't allow this person to come and say this to you, to pull you. Don't allow this person. Set those healthy boundaries and say, I am not going to be pulled into whatever this confusion is going to be, whatever the confusion is. You have to set boundaries. Set boundaries for your time.
Oh, yeah.
We say we're going to start at 2:00. We need to start at 2:00.
Yeah.
If we say that, we're going to open gifts at 3, we need to open gifts at 3. Being respectful of other people's time is also really important. Yeah. Being positive when you get there. Expect to have a good time.
Yeah. And decide you're going to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Expect that you're going to enjoy your family, because if you come in and there's already tension and you have an attitude, then you're already anticipating and expecting not to have a good time, whether you know it or not. And you're going to give off that vibe as well. So expect to have a good time. Monitor your conversation. Control the narrative. Religion and politics are off. They're off the top. That's not to be discussed. Take those out of the conversation. Control the narrative. When a conversation is starting to become negative, you control your conversation. You control that narrative. So you give yourself permission to walk away from those negative conversations. Give yourself permission to go have your glass of wine and say, look, you can come and join me for a glass of wine and let's talk about New Year's Eve. So control that narrative, control the conversation so that you have, the option not to make that negative. Prepare yourself for possible chaos.
Yeah. Have an exit plan.
So you have to prepare yourself for positive chaos. For possible chaos, because it may happen. Yeah. And so what's your exit plan?
Yeah.
You don't want to be involved. What's your exit plan?
Yeah.
You know, goodbye. Are you waving to, your grandmother in the corner? I'm done. I already have your exit plan in your mind so that you don't have to soak up any of that negativity, and that can in turn put you in a negative place for the holidays. So those are like a few things that you can do. Understanding your family's coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
That's a huge one.
Yeah.
We all know our families, but understanding what your family's coping mechanisms are, and your family's love language, also really important. Think, traditions, understanding that love language, understanding, those coping mechanisms that your family has. That's really important. Knowing, when you walk in the house and your grandmother said, "Oh, you gained 20 pounds."
Don't you hate that? Like,
you
I
know,
like to say, sometimes it depends on who it is, but I'm still smaller than you.
yes. So, and expecting that, because that's your family member's way of showing love, is to say, you gained 20 pounds. Yeah. And so, being able to receive that and brush it off and say, well, thank you for that comment. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for noticing. Thank you for noticing this holiday.
Thank you for sharing.
So, doing that, expecting to have a good time, setting those limits, that's really important.
Yeah. And I think, like you say, it's all about having a strategy. And that's what being a CEO is all about. CEOs just don't do stuff willy-nilly. They have a strategy, and it's all about knowing yourself, knowing your family, because you've been with them at least, if you're wrong, you've been with them at least 21 years. And in that 21 years, you done figured out who's crazy, who to avoid, and who's going to come with some foolishness. I mean, that. And so this is all about equipping yourself and having a strategy. So, because for the past couple of Christmases, for me, I've just decided in certain situations or just certain holidays, well, you know what? I know that I'm, in a mentally fragile place. I'm not, quite right to deal with anybody, so I set boundaries in that regard. It kind of all goes around what I can tolerate. Yes. And it's really important.
What you can tolerate.
Right.
Do what you can tolerate. And sometimes that means I'm going to go and stay an hour, 2 hours max. Yeah. I'm leaving. And then, I can come back for a nightcap or whatever.
Yeah.
But for this particular time, I'm coming to eat dinner, and then I'm going to another family member's house. Where I'm from, there are like 5 houses on the little street. So you can pick one. When, it's crazy over here, you can go to this aunt's house or go to this aunt's house and, have a little bit of alone time. But everybody's not that fortunate. So have somewhere that you can go, somewhere that you can escape.
Right.
And have a minute to just clear your mind if that's what you need to do.
Right. And don't be beyond having somebody call you, and now you got to go pick them up or something. Really, you got to, that you might need to have a code text. You send to somebody, you send them the code say, I'm going to come up 511. They about to kill me. And then they give you a call. I need you to come pick me up. Oh, my goodness. I can come get you, and then you go get them and never come back. I mean, don't be about it.
But you have to remember to protect your energy, protect your space, because when those family members leave, you stuck with that energy. If it's that negative energy, you have to have a way to process that. So being very intentional about protecting that is important, and don't feel bad about taking some solo time, especially if you're going to be there for a couple of days.
Oh,
you're going to have to find something to do with yourself.
Right.
Self-care is the best care.
It really is. It really is.
Because I tell people all the time, if your mind is not right, everything else is thrown off.
Right.
Everything else is thrown off. So you have to take care of yourself, take care of your mental. You have to manage your mental so that you can be the best. You can show up and be the best cousin, the best aunt, the best sister that you can be during the holiday season. And one other thing is to remain an adult.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Remain an adult.
Put your grown woman panties on and keep them on.
There's someone who's going to test you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to remain an adult. And one thing that I tell people all the time, I don't do passive aggressive well. Say what it is. Let's deal with it. Let the energy, let me be able to do what I need to do and process that energy and move along. Because, when you're in a house full of passive aggressive people.
Oh my gosh, I can't stand passive aggressive. I want to pimp slap them all.
And nobody will say what it is. Because a lot of times you don't know what the problem is. Right. And people are just like walking around like, she, you showed up this year. Well, what's the problem? I had something else to do last year. But if you don't tell me, or if you don't share those issues, then I don't know what the problem. And you just walking around mad, and again, the holiday energy is off. Yeah. So just remaining an adult, even when somebody tests you, even when somebody, not really nice to you, but just remain an adult, making sure that you don't participate in any behavior that's going to perpetuate negative energy.
Yeah. So let's talk about, passive aggression, is how a lot of these things are. You say the little snide remarks, two little relatives sitting over there, literally sipping tea, giggling about other people, talking about people,
right.
Kind of the negative energy in the air. But let's just say, all right, you being grown, they done tested your gangster and said, all right, it's time to shut this down. All right, you're going to be an adult about it. But what about those situations where the inevitable confrontation needs to happen? How you handle it?
That's not a time for a therapy session.
No, I'm talking about confrontation.
And sometimes those family gatherings can turn into a mini therapy session. She did me wrong. She didn't come to my graduation. I didn't get my $25 check when I got married. It could be whatever that can turn. So my advice would be, if you have an issue with someone, to pull that person to the side and be an adult and have a conversation. Look, sister, we're not going to do this at the holiday. Let's schedule some time.
I can't turn the dinner table over and do like Miss Seeley. I can't do like Miss Seeley. Come across.
You can't flip. You can't shake the table.
Jesus turned the table over at the temple. I can't turn them over at Christmas.
You can't turn the table over at Christmas. You cannot do that. That wouldn't be good. That wouldn't be ladylike, right? So protect your energy and have those conversations after, and be intentional about telling people what you're going to do and what you're not going to do during that time. Don't say, I am going to, whisper to this person over in the corner. No, this is what we're going to do, sister. When, next week when we leave home, you and I need to sit down and have coffee and figure out what the issue is. Right. Because a lot of times it's communication. A lot of times it's a misunderstanding. You thinking somebody said something, or you thinking somebody felt a certain way, and that's really not that. That's really not what it is. So giving, honoring that person, your family member, enough to give them an opportunity to tell you what it is really important too. So no, don't shake any tables. Don't throw any glasses. Try to have a peaceful time, and protect your energy. I keep saying that because that is so important, that you don't allow that negativity to come in and change your mood during a time when you're supposed to be spending it with those that you love. So and even loving the ones that are toxic. Yeah, you still have they're still family. You still have relationships with those people. So finding a way to love them through the chaos is important. But protect your energy. Find some solo time. Don't feed into the negativity. Don't feed into the tea conversation in the corner. Stay away from that. And like I said, making sure that you are protecting you.
Because you mentioned something that's really important, and that's this whole concept of honor, right? Honoring not only yourself, but honoring others. And I'm joking around kind of sort about flipping that table over at the dinner table. I'm not going to do that. But you know, a lot of times we want to handle things because it is impacting us, right?
Right.
But the thing that we have to be mindful of is, you know, I may be having it out with my cousin over here, but if the two of us get to arguing, it's going to ruin it for everybody else who has nothing to do with us. And I think,
absolutely,
your advice about, well, you know what, I'm not going to deal with that right now. I'm gonna do the sign of the cross, pray, you know, maybe burn some sage. You might want to carry some sage around with your purse, shake it on some folk. But you know, but decide, you know, this is not the time for me to get what I need, because I need to honor others, especially children, especially when children are around, you know, because
absolutely.
You know, I know a lot of my Christmas hang-ups, you know, have to do with adult issues that I was a part of as a child, that, you know, that one, I shouldn't have been a part of, and then two, carried on and influence, you know, to the extent I have allowed them to influence, you know, my perceptions about Christmas as an adult. And I think that's something that we have to do, because, you know, you do need to have the confrontation, and maybe the confrontation at that time is just to say, the way that you're acting is unacceptable, but we're going to deal with that at a later time. I'm going to go over here, sip my wine, and peace be with you. Peace be with you is my kind way of giving somebody, you know, I'm telling them all kinds of things, but peace be with you. So if you ever get a peace be with you, you better know all the stuff that's behind. But, but again, it's all about honoring
absolutely
that you want. You know, it's the golden rule. I want peace for myself. Because I always say this: if you want peace, you gotta be peace. And you can't show up like World War V.
Absolutely.
Peace to be coming to you, because you sending out the vibes that you're ready to fight and flip over tables.
Absolutely. And you have to be intentional about having your peace. So if that means telling people, or sometimes stepping in the middle and saying, look, let's not do this here. Sometimes, you know, let's not do this right now. Let's figure out another time when you all can have this conversation. Yeah. Because, you know, it's really important, because there's going to be a time when you're sitting over in the corner and you're the eldest in the room and you want peace. You know, so you have to give to receive. You have to give some peace to receive some peace. Yes. You know, so if you can't come in the room and be the troublemaker and try to, you know, and then say, well, oh, you know, I don't know why people are not being peaceful. Yeah. Well, it's because you brought in all this negative energy. Right. You know, so and another good thing about that too is understanding who those people are, because you know who have a problem with people usually before you get there. Oh yeah, right? You know. So being aware and just staying out of it has been probably the best thing that has worked for me through my family. And I have a large family on my mother's side. It's 10 siblings, and they all have children. A lot of them. So staying out of it, you know, and just saying, look, we're not gonna do this here. We're gonna do it another time. I'm not saying don't do it, but we're not gonna do it here. You know, and sometimes people know who the peacemakers are too, because they'll sometimes will gravitate to the peacemaker. So, you know, honoring yourself as a peacemaker, if that's who you are in the situation, honoring yourself as a peacemaker. And if you can honor yourself as a peacemaker, other people will gravitate to that. Yeah. So let's talk about being the peacemaker. You know, you are sitting there and you're observing it, and you see this auntie over here, you know, rolling her eyes at this auntie over here, and you feel the tension. It's not directed at you personally, but you see it's happening. You know, it has the potential to be explosive and ruin everybody's experience. You know, how can you be the peacemaker in that situation where you're trying to basically mediate? And they're older than you. It's your aunts, you know, folks that, you know, they're acting like they need to be at the kids' table, but they grown. Grown and drawing Social Security, but acting like 5-year-olds. You know what? How can you be the peacemaker, you know, and try to calm that situation down? Okay, that's a tough one, because I have some tough aunts. So, you know, having that conversation with somebody was probably not going to be in my best interest. But I will say, staying neutral
Right.
Staying neutral, not taking sides, especially when you don't know the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because a lot of times you just see the tension, you just feel the tension. But staying neutral is really important, you know, because that's your family and you love them and you want people to get along. But I think that staying neutral when you hear in those conversations is going to be your best bet. Try to remain neutral.
Right. Right. Because, you know, it's difficult sometimes to be Switzerland, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you want everybody to be peaceful. You want everybody to get along. And I'll say, you know, one of the things that I had to learn was that I could not expect everybody to get along because, you know, I come from a, you know, blended family. My parents divorced, my mom remarried, my dad remarried. And so we had kind of these two sets of Christmases or two sets of families. And one of the things that I always wanted was, you know, during Christmas time, I wanted to host everybody at my house, you know, and just have one day. I was like, you know, doggone it. If the Allies and the Axis soldiers during World War II could chill out on Christmas Day, surely my family can. And, you know, and I didn't understand all the dynamics. And I know, you know, stepdad and dad, you know, whatever, may not like each other. But I'm like, good gracious, can't y'all agree on each other for one day? But, you know, I had to recognize that I wasn't honoring their feelings.
Right.
Them to fulfill my Christmas fantasies and come and sit around the table because you don't know what's going on with them and who done said something to who and all kinds of things. And everybody may not be at the space where they are in terms of just letting bygones be bygones. There'd be some active stuff going on. But I think that's something that we have to be honest about too, is that, you know, our family's on Hallmark movies, you know, and we can't expect everybody to just forget everything and get along on that one day. They may not, but you can't force it.
Right. You can't force it. You can foster a good time.
Mm-hmm.
You can do your part going in with a positive attitude. Mm-hmm. You can do your part by staying neutral. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that you kind of, I would say, focus on is doing your part. Remembering to stay neutral. Remember to remain an adult. You know, remember not to get,
if you don't remember nothing else about what she told you, remember to remain an adult. That'll help.
It's very easy to get in something and then, you know, before you know it, you have, as you know, my kids say, you have popped off at everybody, you know, or said something to people that you shouldn't have said. So
did you say that out loud? Oh.
I know. And so just remaining an adult, you know, not going back and forth with people and staying neutral. Mm-hmm. You know, just really putting your best foot forward to foster good relationships, and hopefully others will attach to your energy and can spread some of that around.
Yeah, because you know we've talked about kind of, you know, a lot of situations where it is fairly benign, and I don't say that to discount anyone's, you know, issues or to say that, you know, something's more important than anything else. But for the most part, these are disagreements that probably can be resolved. But what about those really hard situations where there's a family member who has hurt you, like literally? It could be a relative who has, you know, molested you or has done something in the past that, you know, was really, really harmful, and you have to see this person and be reminded of that trauma or reminded of those situations. You know, what are some of the things that that people can do to try to lessen, you know, reliving those moments each year?
So I would say, you know, really think about whether you want to be in that room. Mm-hmm. Because you are responsible for you. Mm-hmm. And you are responsible for your feelings. And just because you feel this way about this person that has hurt you doesn't mean that everybody else in the room doesn't have a different experience. Mm-hmm. And so when you see everybody else being nice and having, you know, cheering this person on, that can foster some real, you know, bad feelings, you know, and that can put you in a bad place because your experience is different from everybody else's in the room.
Right.
So the first thing I would do is decide if I want to be in that room.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked about last week, changing traditions.
Yeah.
Your Christmas may not look the way, or your holiday may not look the way that it has looked in years past. And so
Mm-hmm.
what can you do to make that the best time?
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to say no.
Yeah. Right.
It's okay to say, I'm not comfortable with that. And so I'm not going to be able to attend. And if you really want to attend, attending at your own pace.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you can stand. If you can
Mm-hmm.
go and attend for an hour and that's okay with you, then go attend for it. But don't put yourself in a position where you're uncomfortable. Don't put yourself in a position where you are vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
You have to protect your space and your energy. And if you cannot take it, it's okay to say, I can't do that right now. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
And having people realize that you may not ever be there, which means that you may have to change some traditions.
Right.
But
And
yourself in harm's way is never okay.
right. And that's what being the CEO of you is all about, is it's being okay with saying no and being okay with setting those boundaries, and not just being okay with it, but being unapologetic about it and recognizing that as the CEO of you, that's your right. You are entitled to do that. You are empowered to do that. And this is all about, again, kind of starting with that self-awareness.
Right.
If you know you're not mentally strong, then don't even put yourself in that situation. Because there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that, because like I say, the past couple of Christmases for me, I've known I am not mentally where I need to be to deal with all the dynamics that go along. So I tell you what, I'm gonna put myself in a safe space where I don't go crazy for the holidays, because I'm not trying to do that. And then when I do feel that I'm able to do it, then I'll do it. But until then, I ain't doing it, and I ain't sorry I ain't doing it.
Because one thing that we do, and I tell people this all the time, we measure our strength by how much stuff we can take. And stuff is not the word that I really want to use.
Yeah, I know.
But we measure after, okay, well, she took this and she took this and she stayed in a room with the person who molested her. Oh, look, she is so strong.
Oh, yeah.
No, she's breaking down on the inside.
Right.
And so we tend to, congratulate people for taking so much stuff.
Right.
Instead of telling them, it's okay for you not to do that. It's okay for you to say, I'm not attending the Christmas dinner this year. And, I'm removing myself from the equation because I'm not there yet. Right.
And I think, like you've hit on a very important point. Being strong is not taking it, That's not what being strong is. Being strong is making a decision about what you are going to take and what you are not going to take, and don't take what you said you're not going to take. That's truly being strong, because if you're taking in all of this negative energy, or you're taking in these hurtful things, you look strong, as you say, on the outside, but on the inside, you just breaking all down. And then when everybody's gone, you fall apart.
Right. And remembering that you don't have to self-sacrifice.
Yes.
You don't have to be the sacrificial lamb.
Yes.
You don't have to do that. You can say, I'm not doing it this year. You don't have to be the sacrificial lamb for everybody else.
Yeah.
Because where does that leave you emotionally and mentally?
Right.
You don't have to do that for everybody else. You have to make sure that you are okay, that you are honoring yourself by putting yourself in positions that are good for you and that allow you to win.
Right. Don't set yourself up to lose. That's not what CEOs do.
Don't set yourself up for the negative conversation if you know it's going to be there. That's why you got to go back to step one and be prepared. If you choose to do that, then you have to go back and you have to prepare yourself for that. So
right, because it's all about that decision, those strategies, and truly being like you say, intentional. You've used that word a lot, and that's not a trite expression. Being intentional is, creating a vision for the kind of life you want.
Absolutely.
And again, we're talking about it in the context of holidays, but this is true 365 days a year, where you have to be intentional about how you want to be treated, how you want to be respected, and that you are, and decide that this is what I want, this is what I desire. I like to use the word desire. I listened to a webinar a while back that was talking about wealth, and one of the things that that really struck me and has really helped me to refocus is using the word desire instead of want. Want is a double entendre because it can mean to desire, it can also mean to lack. To be in need of. And so I think we have to not be double-minded about what we desire and what we deserve. Because I use those words desire and deserve intentionally, because you can't be double-minded about it. You have to be focused, and I always talk about the word decide means to kill. Its root is side, to kill, and decide means to kill off all other options, which means you are singularly focused on what it is you desire and what you deserve, and you can't be double-minded about it.
Absolutely. You made a wonderful point about that. And, being, again, my word, intentional about your phrasing. Because you want to be able to speak life into what you're doing, and not using those negative things and saying, this is what I desire. This is what I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to do when I get to my grandmother's house for Christmas. And being, again, intentional about what you desire.
And again, not saying you deserve and desire one thing, but you're acting differently.
Right. And that's you have to have an action plan. You got to line it up with what you say that you want. Because, when at this other event that you and I were at, you say you want to buy, to buy a new car, but if you haven't prepared, if you haven't saved, you haven't put something into action, you can desire it all day. Right. But if there's no action, to your desire.
Right, because we're getting into the vision board season, if you will, where people are beginning to make their vision boards and literally go through those vision board activities, for what they want in the new year. But I think, a lot of us forget that the vision board is just the beginning. It's just the vision that you are projecting, but ain't nothing gonna happen if you don't back that vision up.
Right.
So, this is all about, again, making those CEO moves, creating a circle of influence, deciding who is healthy for you and who is not, then empowering and educating yourself for elevation. You talk about being prepared, knowing yourself, knowing the other people, knowing what you can withstand, and knowing what is your limit. And then operationalizing what you learn to optimize your outcome. It makes no sense to listen to what we're talking about tonight, set a vision for it, and then you get there and you don't act upon it.
Right.
All of those things go together.
Right.
All of those things.
You have to have an action plan. You have to put work into that. You have to put work into that board. You have to, be, again, my word of 2019 is going to be intentional. You have to be intentional on your action plan. You can't just put that board up and say, okay, I did a vision board last year, but have you put yourself in motion to optimize the possibilities for that goal? Have you put yourself, you want to be, on the cover of Essence. Have you put yourself in a place to do that?
Yeah.
What are some things that you can do? What is your action plan for that particular goal that you have? And so you put those things on the board, but you also have to work for them as well. And I think that sometimes that's a misconception when people think about vision boards, that something is going to magically appear. And that's not what happens. It reminds you, it puts those things in front of you so that you will remember to work your action plan.
So I think hold you accountable to you, as I always like to say.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Well, of course, we've done it again. We've gotten gotten this conversation real. That's one thing I love about this, is that, it's so um powerful when you just start having a conversation around things.
Right.
Even though I always have a planned topic, the flow of the conversation is always natural, and it just rolls on along, and it's always great to see how it progresses. And this is what we do when we sit around the table, over our beverage. That's why I say bring,
Absolutely.
because there's power in talking, and because um when you give a voice to what you're feeling, you give it power,
Right.
and you are able to act on it. So, I just want to again thank you so much for joining me here in the C-Suite. It has been an awesome couple of episodes. You were here on the last episode, and you are closing out this calendar year. This is the last episode before the holidays, and episode 25. So this is we've been at this for 25 episodes. So I'm so excited about it, and so excited to have this important topic of what to do when you deal with the toxic people. It's something that's so important. It's something we must empower ourselves to do. So any parting words or anything that you want to share with our audience about anything you've got going on, or just how to get in contact with you, or anything that you want us to remember about your time here in the C-Suite?
So I have thoroughly enjoyed this topic. I've learned some things myself. And I just want to first say thank you for giving women this platform and giving women this opportunity, because without things of this nature, that could mute a lot of women. So thank you for giving women this opportunity to be a part of the C-Suite. I think that's really important. So thank you. I can be reached at Premier Counseling Services on Facebook, and on Instagram, it's at Premier Counseling Services. Coming up, we talked about vision board. So coming up in the next year, January 6th, I'll be in Houston, Texas, at the Houston African American Museum of Culture, hosting a vision board event. And then I'll be here in Gulfport on January 12th, hosting a vision board event. And you can find information out about both of those events on the Premier Counseling Services page. All those events are shared on there. So thank you again, Stephanie, for having me. I hope that all of our viewers learned something, got something out of it. And I wanted to say, thank you for having me again. And I hope that everyone has a stress-free holiday season. And remember to be intentional about your space and enjoy as much as you can these holidays.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope to get to see you. Well, I plan to get to see you earlier in the new year. I plan to make my way.
Yeah.
So, we'll have to have us a beverage together.
Our conversation.
Yes. The conversation that shall not be televised.
Absolutely. It will not be televised.
Yes. Well, you have a great holiday season. Always good to talk to you. And again, thank you for what you're doing to empower women and girls, and to just show us all what it truly means to, as I call it, live life in the end, making those CEO moves, and you continue to live your best life, because that's what you deserve. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, I hope that y'all enjoyed that, and I hope that this episode has been impactful for you. And I would like to remind you that this episode was brought to you by Deciding on Joy, my journey from breakup to breakthrough in 30 days. This is something that will help you to, in fact, decide on joy. And it's a self-help book that helps you to transition from the pain, the loss, and the despair of breakup to creating your own personal journey to breakthrough, because a breakthrough is only a choice away. So you can go to www.decidingonjoy, that's decidingonjoy.com, to order your autographed copy. And of course, it is available on Amazon. So we have come to the end of Conversations from the C-Suite, and this is the final episode of this calendar year. And we will be picking back up in the new year with a series that is going to focus on living life in the and, because I want women everywhere to decide to live life in the end. They don't have to choose between either or, being a mother or a wife or a CEO or a sister or a friend or a lover. Baby, you can do it all, but it takes some strategy. So we're going to be talking to women who are living life in the end. They are living their own personal version of having it all. And you can have it all, maybe not all at the same time, and maybe not all in the way you desired, but you can definitely have it all that you deserve. So I look forward to reconnecting with you when the series begins again, and we will be having those CEO powerhouses in the C-suite. And of course, you can catch previous episodes at csuitewomen.tv. That's csuitewomen.tv. And you can go back and catch the previous 24 episodes if you have not had a chance to catch them before now. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining me here in Conversations from the C-Suite, where you get to create the life you desire and deserve. And I hope that while you were here, you were able to feel something, learn something, but most of all, I want you to do something, because this was a great conversation, but you've got to do something. You've got to make those CEO moves, create your circle of influence, elevate and empower, educate and empower yourself for elevation. I can't talk. And you need to operationalize what you've learned so that you can optimize your outcome, because all you do is take notes and put comments in the feed and give me the little hands. I love the hands, I love the hearts, but most of all, I want you to do something. So thank you so much. Until next time, I am Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, your host of Conversations from the C-Suite, the girlfriend's guide to being a CEO. Whether you report to a CEO or you are the CEO of your own business, you are always the CEO of you. So don't just talk about it, be about it. And the right time to do it is now. Don't wait, because wait broke the scale. Your life is the product of your choices. Choose to be the CEO of you. Until next time, I'll see you in the C-Suite.